The Doors, 1967. Vietnam is burning, America is cracking apart, and four kids in a garage decided to set the rules of music on fire. Their name was The Doors. And when they opened that door, what was behind it changed everything. And nobody was ever going back. Four guys, four different souls. But together, they became the most dangerous rock band history had ever seen. Jim Morrison, poet, rebel, God, ghost. He studied film at UCLA but chose the stage instead. He turned his poems into music and put audiences in a trance. His voice was both a scream and a whisper. The Lizard King, he gave himself that name, and he earned it. Ray Manzarek, the backbone. The guy who played keyboards and bass at the same time with one hand each. He was the one who turned Morrison's dreams into sound. He met Jim at UCLA on the beach. They started talking and the world was never the same. Without Ray, there is no Doors. Period. Robby Krieger, the Fire, a guitarist unlike any other. His fingers moved from flamenco to psychedelic, from blues to rock, and every note had his own voice in it. He wrote Light My Fire. He was 18 years old. 18 years old, and he wrote a world classic, John Densmore, The Heartbeat. Jazz trained, but he poured it all into a rock rhythm. He was the band's clock, its pulse, its conscience. Whenever Morrison went off the rails on stage, Densmore's drums would either hold him together or set him free. 1965, Los Angeles. Under the Venice Beach sun, Jim Morrison read his poems to his UCLA classmate Ray Manzarek. Ray reached for a keyboard, Jim sang, and in that moment, they both felt it. This is something different. Robby Krieger and John Densmore joined up. They took the name from Aldous Huxley's book, The Doors of Perception. Huxley had written about his experiments with mescaline. He'd do whatever it took to open the door. The Doors did exactly the same. They played the Whiskey a Go-Go, night after night, over and over, but each night a little better, a little more dangerous. One night the manager threw them out. Jim went into an incest-themed section during the end on stage. They got fired. The next day, Elektra Records handed them a deal. In rock and roll, sometimes the best things are born from the worst moments. 1967, first album drops. And there was one song, when radio stations played it for the first time, people pulled over their cars just to listen. Light My Fire. Robby Krieger wrote it, 5 minutes and 45 seconds long. Radio stations said too long and cut it. But people wanted the full version. It climbed the charts, hit #1. The stations that didn't cut it blew past the ones that did. The Doors weren't a band anymore. They were a phenomenon. That same year, they went on the Ed Sullivan Show. The production team wanted them to change the line. Girl, we couldn't get much higher. Morrison winked, said sure, got on stage and sang it exactly as written. They were never invited back, and that made them even more legendary. Guys who don't play by the rules are always remembered longer. The Doors' music lived at two extremes. On one side, the energy that made you dance, that set you on fire. On the other side, darkness, heavy, psychedelic, existential, the end. It started as a breakup song for a girlfriend. Then it grew on stage, turned, deepened. It reached into the Oedipus complex, into death, into the unknown. When Francis Ford Coppola put it in the opening scene of Apocalypse Now, nobody was surprised, because the Doors had always been writing war music, just the war inside. In Riders on the Storm, rain, thunder, and Ray's strange, haunting synth, it felt like the end of the world was coming. But you were dancing anyway. Jim Morrison published poetry books. He read poems on stage, said I'm not a rock star, I'm a poet. Both were lies, both were true. And then Morrison started drinking, hard. With every album, he pulled a little further inside. His performances became unpredictable. He'd stop mid-concert, just stand there at the mic, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, then explode back into it. The crowd didn't know what to do. They screamed, they loved it, they hated it. They came back. That's how dangerous men operate. 1969. Miami, the Doors on stage, Jim Morrison, wasted, and something happened. He screamed at the crowd, called them idiots, What exactly went down on that stage is still debated, but the Florida police had an arrest warrant out the next day. Indecency, disturbing the peace, public intoxication. Morrison was convicted. He appealed. Before the verdict came down, he left for Paris. In Paris, he wrote, he went out, he sat in cafes, he lost himself, found himself, lost himself again. The other three stayed in Los Angeles. They waited. The label waited. The fans waited. On July 3, 1971, Jim Morrison was found dead in his Paris apartment. He was 27 years old. The cause was never officially determined. No autopsy was performed. The files were closed. And Jim Morrison joined the 27 Club, Hendrix, Joplin, Cobain. The Doors made 2 more albums without Morrison. But without him, the Doors weren't the Doors. They officially broke up in 1973, but they never really left. Morrison's grave is at Père Lachaise Cemetery in Paris, right next to Chopin and Oscar Wilde. Visitors every single day, 30 years later, 40 years later. That's how a band gets carved into music history, not by how they died, but by what they created. The Doors' music has been rediscovered by every new generation. Oliver Stone's 1991 film introduced them to a whole new crowd, still millions of streams on Spotify today. When rock history gets written, their names are on the first page, because they didn't just write songs, they opened a door, and everyone who walked through it came out changed. The Doors taught us this: the best art is the art that breaks the rules, pushes the limits, and lives dangerously. Jim Morrison would stand on a stage and hypnotize a crowd, because he was saying something he actually believed, in every note, in every line. Ray, Robby, and John, they turned that crazy dream into music. Without them, Jim would have just been a poet. Together, they became a legend. If this video took you to that door, hit like, share it, subscribe to the channel. Every week we're right here telling the deepest stories in rock history, and drop it in the comments. What's your favorite Doors song? Mine, Riders on the Storm, because life's already enough of a storm. At least let the music ride along. See you in the next one. Rock never dies.